The fight for rights is the wrong way to go. And the fighting for justice is just a distraction. Greetings, Baba Brother D from the New Ashe. You know that the fight for rights has been a major theme in the black movement, and that we regularly are marching, fighting for, marching, making demands for justice, issues of equality. And some of us have been questioning that, and I in particular recognize that there's a certain amount of competition, because when we get to trying to build certain things, something goes down, and the very same people who were on board around building something say, wait, we gotta go and respond to this or that. And I understand the emotional appeal when you see one of our people or a group of our people getting dogged out. You want to respond. You're upset. You don't like to see nobody doing something to one of your own. Some of us have that feeling like, that could be me. And it just might be you. But the fact of the matter is, we don't see the difference between going through the motions as if we are defending our well-being and actually protecting our well-being. Very often in practice, it seems like it is good enough for us to behave like we are upset, even though we know we have a history of going through those exact same motions and not producing a state of affairs that is actually more protective of our existence. So I'm saying that that stuff is distraction. I'm saying that that stuff is the wrong way to go. The fact of the matter is, you would not be able to actually protect some sense of rights if you ain't got no power. You won't be able to actually achieve your notions of justice if you ain't got no power. That is, except when the people who do have power decide that it is in their interest to actually act like they're showing you some rights or some justice or some fair treatment. But the struggle is not about fair treatment. Struggle is for power. The struggle is not about a notion of rights. We are so into rights, we don't even stop to think, well, what does rights actually mean? Rights are basically rules within some structure that the people who enforce that structure will enforce those rules. And if they don't enforce those rules, you got rights, but so what? We will get hung up on the idea that somebody has a set of rules that says that we're supposed to enjoy certain things, and not come to grips with the fact that the people who make those rules, or the people who endorse those rules, or act like they are really about those rules, don't change those rules when they get ready. Don't ignore those rules when they get ready. Don't bend those rules when they get ready. You got a good portion of our people who think that our struggle is about having a seat at the table. At whose table? Power is not having a seat at the table. Power controls the seats at the table. Power determines who gets to be at the table, and if they want you at the table, then you can be at the table, but that don't mean you got any power. And when power don't get its way at the table, power overturns the table. And you talking about you want a seat at the table. Rights, justice, equality. Equality with who? Who are they for you and I to be equal to begin with? Ain't nobody to be equal to. The question has to be about how do we build power? And power is built through organization. Power isn't built through running behind somebody else with power, complaining about their misusage of power. Power is not about going to people with power, getting upset and trying to shame them or beg them into treating you right. Power operates in a way where people will treat you right, not because they think they should treat you right, but because they know what will happen if they don't treat you right. Now, I've got an observation that a lot of folks will not like. People talking about our struggle of resistance and our struggle, we've come a long way. We got a long way to go, but we've come a long way. I want you to think about this. Name me one actual victory that we claim to have that did not, in fact, turn out to advance the interests of the people in charge. Name one. We can take it from moving from chattel slavery. Chattel slavery existed in this country in this part of North America from the early 1600s. What was special about the mid 1800s, the 1860s to be more precise, where a war that results in the ending, or at least the decision to end chattel slavery. We've been enslaved this whole time. What was special about the 1860s? I'll tell you what was special about the 1860s. The material interests of the ruling elite, their interests changed. And slavery was no longer consistent with their needs. We had to deal with segregation from the ending of Reconstruction up until the 1950s and 1960s, and in some areas the 1970s. We were dealing with segregation all of that time. That's practically 100 years. What was special about the 1950s? That segregation gets significantly challenged. What was special? The interests of the ruling elite changed. And segregation was no longer consistent with their particular needs. We can take this on the interterritorial scale. Some people say international, but I see the African nation as one, even if the African nation does not yet see ourselves as one, but I'm going with what Nkrumah taught. So I don't say international, which means between nations. I say interterritorial. Now get with that. Take it to the interterritorial scale. The movement of our people to national liberation and the ending of colonialism in the majority of the territories in Africa that you find our people. And in the Caribbean. Victory, right? Nkrumah himself wrote a book called Neo-Colonialism, wrote it in 1966, in which he documents that it is more profitable under neo-colonialism to the ruling elite, the white power structure. They make more profit under neo-colonialism than they made under standard colonialism, and you think you got something. We have to move forward on our own terms, not moving forward according to when it is advantageous to the people in charge and then actually deluding ourselves into thinking that we got something. Our survival is at stake. And a whole bunch of distractions, we ain't got time for all of these distractions. because, as some of you have heard me say before, our circumstances are dire. The situation is intensifying on this planet. We have to get it together. Say something about resistance, and I really want to do a number of talks on our notions of resistance, because I was raised up in this movement with this glorification of our history of resistance. Yo, we resisted, yes, and we resisted, and we resisted. Okay, so we resisted. I'm tired of resisting. I want to win. You can talk about resisting. I want to win. Some of us are so anti-strategic. I'm not even going to say non-strategic, because we already know we ain't strategic. I'm saying anti-strategic. Anti-strategic in terms of we be fighting each other to keep from getting strategic. Strategic means moving with something according to a plan. Right? We ain't got no plan. Some of us are so anti-strategic that we actually think we move our movement forward by uncoordinated acts of resistance that do not achieve strategic objectives. Don't you realize that if somebody ties you up, let's say they captured you and had you tied up, right, and with tape over your mouth, and you busy fighting and squirming, and you manage to get the ropes loose in your anger, in your frustration, and your need to let your adversary know that you not having it. You just not going to take this lying down. Okay? Don't you know that a captor will just simply tie a better knot? You don't go up against, your external enemies, simply trying to show your enemies that you not having it. You need planning. You need preparation. You need to study a circumstance. And you need to decide when you're going to make your move. And you need to be ready when you're going to make your move. And we walking around here talking about stand up and let your voice be heard. Where did we get that from? Let your voice be heard. Just like a whole bunch of us talking about register and vote. Right? All sorts of stuff that is meaningless in terms of the questions of power. Now, I'm a Pan Africanist. I am guided by the notion of the need to organize across differences. And we got all sorts of differences that divide African people. We've got the traditional differences that the term Pan-Africanism was initially applied to. Differences in geography, differences in ethnicity, differences in religion. But we got all kinds of differences beyond that. Differences in class, differences in complexion, differences in appearance and family background and lifestyle, differences in educational levels, differences around ideological, concepts. I'm prepared to, my history is a history of working with people across differences. I can jump on the case of folks who are pushing the equality line, the rights line, the we demanding this and we demand that and we demand the other line, because I work with folks who push that. I'm in the minority on those particular questions. I'm tired of being in the minority on those questions, but I'm in the minority. All right? I'm not with reparations, yet I was part of the original government RNA, whose leadership played a big role in starting NCOBRA, and there I am, a minister within the RNA, And I ain't with reparations. It doesn't stop me from working with people who are about reparations. I've been a member of the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, an organization that was founded to concentrate on human rights work, and I ain't even about human rights, because it's more important to me to establish relationships with working with my people and those members of my people who have an interest in working for our people. So I'm not going to let these differences prevent me from working with folks that I don't agree with, but I'm going to let you know that I don't agree. And I'm going to work to move other people off of viewpoints that I think are not effective to where we got to be. We have to raise the level of quality ideological struggle in our movement. We have to be able to talk about things that we usually don't talk about. We just sort of take for granted that are the right points of view. I'm not sure that you've ever heard anybody challenge the idea of resistance, okay? So I would be quite happy to be the first, all right? The idea of resistance, let me quote it. I remember back in '99, I believe it was, we had a forum. We had a forum called the Culture of Resistance, and it was a forum that involved a whole lot of spoken word artists occurring at a popular spoken word venue. We were having the Culture of Resistance. It was on the assassination date of Malcolm X, February 21st, and our keynote speaker was the late Luis Reyes Rivera, somebody that many of us revere. And I remember he said, resistance is as old as the first ass whooping. And it was profound, because he went on to point out that just simply resisting is not a big deal. Resisting is normal. Resisting is automatic. When people are faced with something that they don't like, you resist. If you ever had one of them ass whoopings, you ought to know. We resist. The issue is not whether or not we resist. The issue is whether we put our actions in the proper order, we have the proper level of preparation, that we have the necessary degrees of coordination, so that we don't just simply resist like you resisted that ass whooping, squirming and trying to get away, all right? But that we actually win. So this was not intended to be one of the training videos that that I promised you would come, but I'm hoping that you get some training out of it. I'm Baba Brother D. And I want to thank you for your attention.